Yes, it is live now. Yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I welcome you all for the Nature Ki Pathshala being organized by IDYM, Igniting Dreams of Young Minds Foundation. Today, we will be having a panel discussion, and yes, we have got speakers from different parts of the world. And before starting the session, let me just talk in short about IDYM, Igniting Dreams of Young Minds Foundation. It has spread its wing in 195 countries of the world, and its main motto is to spread education on space and satellite technology. And till now, it has finished more than 1,000 workshops and has trained more than 1.5 lakh students around the world. Today, we are back with one more session in which we will be talking about impact of climate change on our daily life. Yes, climate change. We have been discussing so much, and the impact of climate change on our daily life, we can be experiencing it. So we have speakers from we have Rania Lampo ma'am from Greece, we have Elizabeth ma'am from Mexico, and Nirmala ma'am has joined from Malaysia. So we have speakers from different countries, and we'll be listening to each one of them and knowing about their initiatives they have been taking in their own country for dealing with the climate change. So now let's start our session with Rania Lampo ma'am from Greece.
Hello, everyone. From Greece, actually, I'm traveling, but I managed to join on time. Thank you very much, IDYM, for this invitation, and many congratulations for this very significant initiative, because climate change, I think, is the most relevant topic nowadays. And we are, as I say in my presentations, in this Anthropocene age, this geological epoch when humans have had an overriding influence on the Earth and the atmosphere. So this is a step closer to being formally recognized as a new geological period. The word is derived from the Greek words, the Greek roots. Anthropo means human and scene means new. So this shows the geological age or epoch relating to human species. Climate change is actually caused by humans adding greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide to the atmosphere in various ways, and some of course, nations release a lot more than others, partly because they're larger, but also because most of the citizens and regions have a bigger carbon footprint. So the human impact shows that the world has warmed by 4 degrees in 20,000 years since the peak of the last ice age, and by 1.5 degrees since 1900. So in this short time, we have enjoyed technological revolution made possible, by, of course, by massive consumption of energy. And most of the energy has been generated using fuel that, when burned, releases carbon dioxide. The increase in carbon dioxide matches the rise in global air temperature. So accelerated global warming is being caused by our modern energy hungry, we could say, way of life. And the current rise in average global temperature is being caused, as before, human activities. Of course, climate change has also occurred in the past, even before people existed and started to change the world. These shifts were caused by natural cycles that affect Earth's orbit around the sun, by changes in solar radiation levels, and by catastrophic natural events such as massive volcanic eruption. So when we talk about greenhouse effect nowadays, the atmosphere that surrounds our planet acts as both sunscreen and insulation. shielding life from the fiercest of the sun's rays, while at the same time retaining heat that would otherwise escape back into space at night. So this feature of the atmosphere is known as the greenhouse effect. Life on Earth would be impossible without it, but the problem is its increasing power, which it is causing global warming. So the energy that the Earth soaks up from the sun is more or less balanced by the energy that it radiates out into space. So, of course, the problem is that we have imbalances caused by greenhouse gases that can make the planet colder or warmer, leading to other changes in the climate system. And the main greenhouse gases are water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone. Climate change scientists are concerned that a large rise in global temperature may trigger powerful feedbacks that will continue to make Earth warmer. And another important factor is what we call burning the forests. Most of the extra carbon dioxide that accelerates climate change is being released by burning carbon-rich fuels, including wood, which people have been burning for thousands of years for heat and cooking. And as we can see, early human civilization grew larger. The demand for burning wood greatly increased. Vast forests are also being felled and being burned to clear land for farming and road building, especially in the tropics. This is, of course, contributing to climate change by releasing all the carbon that the forest trees have absorbed over their lifetimes. And fossil fuels, of course, because in the 18th century, people began mining coal in more concentrated, abundant source of energy. So coal fueled the rise of modern industry, of railways and steamships. Later, oil and natural gas were developed into fuels for road vehicles and aircraft, and both coal and gases are used to generate electricity that powers our modern lives. So modern society runs on fossil fuels. They power transportation, they run on industries, they heat our houses, our hospitals, our schools, and generate most of our electricity. Deforestation also is another important factor. Deforestation with the use of fossil fuels are, of course, human activities causing climate change, and other aspects of modern life are adding to the problem by producing more carbon dioxide as well as other greenhouse gases, such as methane, as I said before, nitrous oxide. These other greenhouse gases are released in much smaller quantities than carbon dioxide, but they have a serious impact because they're much more powerful. So this is generating electricity and heat by burning fossil fuels, industry products, manufacturing, cutting down forests, transportation, production of food, power buildings, overconsumption. All these are factors that actually have contributed to climate change. So how will this change the world? We know that many countries already experience extreme heat waves, droughts, floods, extremes of heat, increases in deaths from wildfires, and in many parts of the world, the evidence of climate change is obvious. These heat waves that we experience that can raise temperatures to lethal levels in droughts that made drinking water scarce, kill crops, farm animals, and turn fertile land to desert. And these periods of extreme hot or dry weather are getting more frequent. In cold climates, snow builds up and gradually becomes compacted into ice, forming mountain glaciers and polar ice sheets. Polar oceans also freeze at the surface in winter, creating floating sea ice. And at the same time, we talk about warming oceans. You know that since the decade of 70s, the oceans have absorbed 90% of excess heat from carbon dioxide emissions. So up to date, the oceans have been warming up more slowly than the continents. The surface ocean warms first, and heat is eventually transferred to the deep oceans, which will continue warming even if greenhouse gas emissions stop. So warming ocean water expands, and together with melting ice on land, this is causing sea levels to rise. And you know that the oceanic research is important because the dynamics of the ocean are a major part of the overall climate system. Scientists work harder to gather data that enhance their understanding of the way the system works and how the oceans and the atmosphere interact to influence climate change. And much of this data are obtained by sophisticated technology, including remote sensors on automated, also miniature submersibles and satellites. So climate change is a serious problem also for the animals that hunt or breed on the sea ice of the Arctic. The ice is shrinking each year, and the summer ice may disappear altogether by 2017 or sooner. And the most vulnerable of these animals is the species at the top of the food chain, the polar bear. If the ice vanishes, so too will the bear. There are many climate models that scientists are trying to design. How much warmer will we get? How will that affect the world? There are a lot of factors to consider, so scientists build them into mathematical models of the climate using computers to see what happens when the figures for greenhouse gas emissions are increased. And the projections actually demonstrate that if we don't do more to stop climate change, temperatures could rise by 3 or 4 degrees more by 2100 with potentially serious results. So this, of course, if we don't do anything, would release more greenhouse effects and greenhouse gases. And we know that catastrophic climate change is something that must stop. We need to do something. So we need to act now. So the impact is huge in human society because the people who are likely to suffer most are those who living in developing worlds. Many already have to cope with extreme climate. Climate change will likely bring more famines, mass migrations, and conflicts over land resources. Industrialized societies will suffer too. All this shows the severity of the problem. So this is a global program that requires a global response, but getting all the nations to agree on solutions is difficult. Replacing the technologies that are causing the problem is costly, but we have more to lose by risking climate chaos. By decrease, agreements are being forced to combat the climate change. Currently, the world relies on electricity from fossil fuels, but this must be replaced, for instance, by renewable forms of energy. So countries all around the world are now trying to reduce the amount of fossil fuels they use and also increase the amount of carbon dioxide that they remove from the atmosphere by planting trees. Something which is very doubtful, it's about nuclear power. The role of thorium is considered as a renewable energy by many scientists. It's a very big debate about this. It's obvious a powerful and reliable energy source that emits no greenhouse gases. Nuclear fission exploits the amount of energy released by radioactive uranium when its atoms are split in a nuclear reactor, but the radiation also is extremely dangerous. So it's something which actually goes a big debate if this was considered as an alternative source of energy. So how we could achieve energy efficiency, supplying power without using the fossil fuels that contribute to climate change is a challenge. If we all use energy more efficiently, there would be less demand. Green transport also is important. Our carbon footprint, we can stop climate change by reducing our carbon footprint, the amount of greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide. Everyone of us can make more climate-friendly lifestyle choices, such as thinking about what we eat, less meat, buying less, reusing, recycling more, and using low-emission transportation. Environmental geopolitics also changing rapidly. China is emerging as a leader in trying to control greenhouse gas emissions. Also, it's important to rethink the role of governments as primary enablers of large-scale change. We do define our relationship with the environment, support and promote international agreements for global governance, engage in dynamic and adaptive conservation management, engage in long-term conservation-minded thinking and management, and always seek ways to make technology, green technology, as an ally, foster the incorporation of conservation values into existing institutions and religions and cultures, include democratic processes, diverse voices in environmental science, and also engage local communities, promote the reduction of human consumption and production, provide opportunities for women. About these women are very developing countries hit by climate change more than men, and all these exploded people, prioritize younger generations. About this, how the young generation youth can play an important role in monitoring and reviewing this the problem, how they can suggest solutions. I think education, the role of education also is important, and I have talked in another presentation what is happening in Greece. We have the European Green Deal, the agenda when European Union tries to has committed to tackle climate and all these challenges through a large scale set of priorities. And to conclude, I want to say that here in Greece, I have launched a project related to environmental education for sustainable development, which is called SOS for Changing the Earth's Climate, which is it concerns primary school students, and the aim of this program is to sensitize teachers and students towards this problem. It's interdisciplinary, holistic, value-driven. It suggests STEM activities and how STEM also is important in dealing environmental issues, why? Because STEM also involves a framework of inquiry-based learning, how to hypothesize, how to question, how to collect information, evaluate, to organize. All these are important. Inquiry-based methods, the inquiry-based model is important when we talk about STEM, when we talk also about environmental challenges and when we search about environmental solutions. Through this activity, my project, I try to help children to encourage them to be involved systematically from an early age in environmental issues, and in this way they can become active citizens, and they can realize their own responsibility towards climate problems. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was really a great session, and as you were talking about so many things related to the climate change, and of course we should now is the time that we should give up using fossil fuels, because yes, as you were talking, the glaciers are melting and the water level is increasing all over the world. And yes, you talked about the role of education. Yes, of course, education of the youth is very necessary, so that the youth, especially the youth, they can handle it only when they're educated, when they're aware of all these situations, they can handle it, and they can come ahead and they can work for handling this climate change. So that was a great session, ma'am. Thank you for joining with us and sharing your views with us. So now to add more on this, as we know that we are today talking about impact of climate change, I invite our next speaker, Melissa ma'am from Mexico. Yeah, Melissa ma'am. Oh, sorry, Melissa ma'am is not joined. I invite Elizabeth ma'am from Mexico. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. How are you?
So here they don't allow any people.
Hello.
Below.
Can you hear me?
The board on the desk.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
No restriction.
Thank you very much. I think that this is a very interesting topic now that we are talking today, because it's very important to have all the time in the mind what is happening, yes, in our world. I have the possibility now to check in different countries with different friends, and then it's different in each country. Yes, and I listened something.
Same time.
I don't know.
See that apartment.
Give me check.
One
One second.
75,000 is what she told them.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
If somebody want to visit,
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
you're audible, ma'am. You're audible.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, okay, sorry. Then I was thinking because in the last conference I was talking with another friends, what is happening? What are we doing in our family with our children? In our context exactly, because we know that this is very important. We know that we have to do something because it's very hard. The air, we can go to the parks, we can walk on the streets, we can do a lot of things, sorry, because we have a big problem. And I think that all are so busy. I think that unless this is in Latin America, because I can find more attention in here now that I am living here in India about this topic for be careful with our work than in Latin America. Yes, in Latin America we talk about this, but not a lot as here. And then I start to think, what is happening? Why we don't put all the attention that we really need? And I thought that is because all are so busy, all are all the time thinking on day by day, busy in home with the kids, with the work, the traffic, all that we have day by day. And we don't put all the attention in as we have to do. What happened then? And maybe we can talk. I talk to my friends. I have a lot of friends and they are teachers in Mexico and in different countries. And I told them, okay, we can talk one day about to be careful with the work, with the water, with all. But the rest of the time, we don't talk about this. Yeah, only we can see a lot of trash, a lot of contamination in the water, in the air. And we say, oh, okay, but it's the people don't think about this. Okay, yes, but I told them about the example. Maybe I am in my car, I am on the street, I have a paper and I say, okay, I can put this in the street, don't happen nothing. It's only one paper, yeah? But I told to my friend, okay, I think that I only one paper, and this is true, but if 20 millions or 30 millions to persons think the same, it's not only a paper, yeah? And if I do it, my son, my children will do the same. What have to do with them? Think every day the same. It's the same idea that we have to go to work, we have to go to the supermarket, we have to study, we have to talk with our family, anything that we have to do every day. At the same time, we have to do something for this, because I can see that if we don't have this day by day by day, we come back to the same problem. We come back to can't enjoy our country, our city, our work. Yes, and I think, why? What is the problem? Yeah, what happened when somebody going to some park or some beach? In Mexico, there are a lot of problems in the beach because all the people give a lot of trash. And all in the sea, you can see a lot of trash, and there are a lot of publicity. Don't do it. Keep clean all. If you find a clean the beach, please keep it clean. But always is the same. And I think that this is the mentality that have anyone. Yes, it's only one trash. It's only one bottle. Don't happen nothing. But when we can see all the millions and millions to trash, to bottles, to plastic, to all that we can do, we can start to check that we have a big problem. And obviously that this is affecting our day by day. Then what have to do in this case? We have to think now. Now here in our panel for discussion, the people that are watching on by Facebook, by Zoom, etc., and can see what is happening. What can I do? What I am doing today, and what I was doing the last week and 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago and 1 month ago. If this is really that I am doing something, because we have to think that the problem is not only for me, it's not only for my family, it's not only for my friend, for my coworkers, for my boss, for my teacher, for anyone. Yes, then what can we do is this part. Then we need to start to think. And when we start to do this, I can see here in India, I can see this is very good for me. I can see that all the time they are separating the trash. And this is very important. These habits we don't have yet in Latin America. This is not using yet. And what happened? Come the car trash and take all, and then we start to have problems in our cities. I don't know how many do you know about Latin America, including Mexico, of course, but we have a really big problem. I can see in different countries. I was checking one map for all the world, and in Europe is the less continent when they have a lot of trash, especially in the sea. Yeah. After this, and the bigger problem is in Asia. Yeah. And then we can see the difference. Latin America is in the middle. Yeah, then the North America is down, it's a bit low too, but I think that we have a time yet for do it. We have time for teach to our children, or students, or family to do it, to start to work in this, to start to think, to start to practice every day and every day about this. Because I think that if we don't do this faster, maybe we can continue living here in this place, in this situation. But the problem, the big problem will be for our children, yes, or the next generation, and will be a big problem, because they don't know, they don't learn how keep this, how can stop all this. Because we as parents, as teachers, as adults don't know how can do it. We don't say to them, we don't teach, we don't say nothing about it, to some paper, some bottle, anything. Then I think that we have to do it. And in this case, listen to our friend, what all that they say sometimes before. I think that this is true. We have to work very hard. We have to work every day. We have to remember every day to all the people in our context. Yes, maybe family, maybe co-workers, maybe students, maybe teachers, the society, in my city, I don't know. We have to do a good example about how can we keep it. Okay, well, Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. It was really another inspiring session. Yes, of course. We have to talk about the climate changes that are talking about that is happening, and even you also raised the same thing. Like, because when we are educators, it is our duty somewhere to reach out to the students and generate awareness among them and encourage every one of them to come forward and work for climate change. And we have with us one more speaker with us, Nirmala Devi ma'am from Malaysia, who is actually working with the students. And every time she's there, the very beautiful presentations and some of the activities that she has been implementing with the students. So nextly, I would like to invite our next speaker, Nirmala Devi ma'am from Malaysia.
Thank you, Dr. Anjum, for the warm welcome. I truly appreciate IDYM Foundation to be able to give me this opportunity. I would say this golden opportunity to present today. And because today we are celebrating World Ocean Day. So indeed, it is a great pleasure to meet Dr. Anjum Qureshi again with global educators in order to share the platform about impact of climate change in our daily life. Well, dear educators, as what Rania ma'am and Elizabeth ma'am mentioned just now, clearly that we need to educate our students and people around us, especially our family members, not only our students, but also Elizabeth ma'am said, our family members, not just to write everything on paper, but to implement and take action. She said it so nicely. Yes, I'm not a policy maker, I'm not a change maker, but I'm an educator who is actually engaging young learners at the age of 11 to 12 years old. I'm teaching in an elementary school. So Anju ma'am knows me very well. But other educators might not know me, but I'm an educator teaching in elementary school. My students are 7 to 12 years old, but I'm directly involved in teaching students who are 11 to 12 years old. So being an educator, my aim is to engage and empower my students to learn English language across the curriculum. And one of the projects that I like to engage my students in learning English language is that SDG-oriented projects. So I've done projects related to SDG 1 to SDG 17 for the past 5 years. So engaging learners using through SDG projects. Initial, yes, I used to tremble in starting the project and all that. But now it became like part and parcel of my life, not only in my family, engaging my children, and also engaging the students and also community around me locally and globally. So through engagements, I noticed that we can do something to save the Mother Earth. Like what we are talking today on World Ocean Day is climate change. Yes, climate change is affecting us. The recent problem that I'm facing related to climate change through my own experience is the weather pattern. So if you notice for the past 3 months, I'm not sure in other parts of the world and also Anju ma'am in India, for the past few months, I think since the month of March, if not mistaken, actually the weather is becoming so hot and heaty until it's like burning our skin. So why this kind of weather pattern is actually affecting us? So definitely it's got to do with climate change. So the climate change is actually is giving a lot of negative impacts on us. Okay, we are the cause for climate change. Actually, humans are the cause for climate change directly or indirectly. But how are we going to face climate change, and what are the effects of climate change we are facing now? We can see that 2 years back, our country was affected with very bad flooded, and a few people died, across in West Malaysia. So the government managed to help the people, the victims and all that. But then why sudden flood? All this got to do with climate change. So as I'm not a researcher, but I'm an observer. So observers staying in a place where climate change is affecting us. So through my experience, I've also eaten fish from the market that I bought many months back, where I noticed that after cooking, I noticed the taste of the fish, the meat of the fish actually tasted, it tastes something like, how should I say? It has a kind of smell and it tasted something like it has chemical content. So this is through my own experience. So why all these things are happening? Because of our own human activities. So how to change all this? We need to educate not only people in the house, but also our students, because we are engaging with many students in the school. Like myself, I'm engaging with 90 students, and I have 742 students actually in the school, from 7 to 12 years old. I can't be doing everything alone. So I engage my educators in the school, especially in English language panel, to carry out programs during World Earth Day celebration. So I just want to share the glimpses, which I've already shared earlier in IDYM Foundation, but perhaps maybe we have new viewers. Okay, this is the place where I come from, East Malaysia, and my school is a Kuwait school. We have around 714 students. As I mentioned earlier, we are celebrating World Earth Day. What is the theme for World Earth Day? Tides are changing. Yes, through the United Nations World Ocean Day 2020, the theme Planet Ocean, Tides Are Changing, we will discover how Earth is more than it may seem and generate a new wave of excitement towards cherishing and protecting the ocean and entirely of our blue planet. Yes, so this so much show telling us that we need to take actions. So the real actions can be taken through World Environmental Day. For example, IDYM Foundation celebrated World Environmental Day for the, I think last 5th of June, few days back. For the past few days, IDYM Foundation is a foundation where celebrating the world, taking actions together in order to educate educators to and empower more educators and more learners actually. So through this kind of platform, we can actually spread awareness locally and globally. So I'm thankful to IDYM Foundation. So during Earth Day celebration, Environmental Day celebration, World Ocean Day, so we need to create awareness among the people around us. All right. So for example, in my school, during Earth Day celebration, we launched the Earth Day celebration, teach the student what are their roles, what are they supposed to do, how are they supposed actions together. So we plan many activities in order to help the learners to understand how they can help themselves and in their community, because they are the next generation. All right. So for example, we made some quiz questions to ask the sustainability of the parents, of the students, of the educators, of the community that we are in order for us to spread the awareness in the community service, in the name of community service. And then the young ones, we can give them origami work in order for them to fold something to understand how to save the earth. And also we can ask them to join us to have pledge, okay, and make prototypes, upcycling to 3 R's, reduce, recycle, reuse the waste and reduce the waste. All right. And we can ask them to do Earth Day crown to spice up the celebration. Okay, and ask them to find research materials on like what Rania Ma'am presented, how many percentage of waste is being discarded, how many percentage of oceans are being affected, and many more Ma'am has presented. So this kind of knowledge we can impart in our students, get them to present in groups. We work because we want to engage the 21st century learning, so students can engage in groups. Ask them to make creative videos. If at all my students manage to make one creative videos, tomorrow we are creating the videos about our plastic waste project campaign. So maybe in next IDYM's project program, I may able to present that particular video of my students' initiative, if at all they manage to finish tomorrow. And we can ask the students to create slogans in order to create awareness of what they think in their mind will come out from from what they are thinking, right? And also plantation activity, like what our speakers mentioned just now. We need to encourage the student, at least one student, one plant. They already have plants at home. At least encourage them to water the plants, to care for the plants, because deforestation is actually impacting on climate change as well. Because when the leaves are reducing, they are less leaves are falling into the ocean, into the rivers, so there might not be enough food for the marine lives. Okay, so the oceans are becoming acidic, the pH level is changing, so actually osteoporosis is happening, not only for humans but also for the oceans. Okay, is the term like osteoporosis. All right, we can engage the students in arts and craft, ask them to write an essay, a short paragraph, a mini poem, and also we can connect, like how are we connecting from Mexico, from Greece, from India, from many other countries. So how do I get this knowledge? I started from zero, from scratch. How I developed myself up to today. I'm still learning from all of you, global educators, through the engagements like this, through platforms like this. So we need to create engagements platform for our students to travel globally, to talk with Elizabeth Ma'am students, to talk with Rania Ma'am students, so to talk with Dr. Qureshi's, Anjum Qureshi students and all that. So we might have different ideas, so we can get our students to exchange. Oceans are the same everywhere, so we want to determine the problem, we want to engage our students, we want to empower the educators in order to come in this kind of platform to join together to save our oceans, bring back the blue ocean. Okay, and of course poster making, coloring will be interesting for the student. Let them to think first, don't straight away jump into big projects. Let them to think, let them to color, let them draw, let them Google to find more information. So you start small, you will go bigger. So this is my advice for educators who are starting to plan to have SDG oriented projects in order to take shared responsibility to save the earth. And of course, plastic waste management is very, very important in order to reduce our own waste, all right? Because plastic pollution is number one pollution that being discussed globally, even in our IDYM Foundation. We have discussed during Earth Environmental Day a few days back, we have discussed about related to how to stop plastic pollution. So once this pollution are not stopped, the waste will end up in oceans, rivers. So what will happen is that due to the effect from the sun and the plastics, they will break up into microplastics. Okay, in our shampoo, facial wash, and many other products, we have these chemicals like microplastics. So all this will end up in oceans, rivers. So what happened to the marine lives, to the corals? So marine lives, the fish, the cuttlefish, the many other marine lives will eat them. They thought that it might be their food, so they will choke, they will die. Many things, we can actually talk about these marine lives that being affected. So during our Earth Day celebration, we ask our students to donate plants and we get them to talk about whatever I mentioned just now. So this can be done. And our students make pledges, through arts and craft, they make posters, and also we exchange bags with global educators. And at the same time, we encourage them not to use plastic bags. In certain parts of the country, we are not encouraging the use of single plastic usage. So we are encouraging them to use their shopping bags, and so much so, educators from India, actually I invited the educator from India to teach my students how to use used t-shirt to make the tote bags. So it was an interesting session where my students learned how to make tote bags, and some of them are practicing. Even I practice using tote bags whenever I go to marketing, whenever I go to shopping or any eateries. We are no longer using plastic straws or plastic cups, single-use plastic materials, things, but instead we are using plastics which can be used many times if can't be avoided, or we are using glass bottles, metals, and so on. So even though the biodegradable materials are expensive, but at least they can decompose faster as compared to normal plastic waste, which can take up to 50 to 80 years to decompose. And I get my students to get the knowledge to research, to present in conferences locally and globally, to join innovative and innovation competitions in order to gain knowledge, not only to win in the competitions at local and global levels, but also to train them to be environmentalists, to be someone who can take shared responsibility to take care of the environment. All right. So they join many conferences and projects in order to learn about climate change, deforestation, and many more. And we have collected over 100 kilograms of plastic waste in our Project Zero Plastic campaign. And till today, our students are able to create prototypes using plastic waste materials, and we send them to recycling. My next project will be extending this plastic waste management and bring this plastic waste management at a higher level in the local community, and also to bring my students to a plastic recycling plant or the company in order for them to see, being an eye-opener for them to see that these plastics that are being thrown most probably will end up in oceans, will kill the sea creatures and will kill the blue ocean, but also to understand how plastics are being recycled. Okay, so this is my plan in upcoming weeks to bring my students to the plastic plantation. And then also we ask the students to clean the plastics and all to bring to school and run the campaign with NGOs and also global educators. Okay, and students are being so effective on every Wednesday for 20 minutes. They bring plastic waste from home, and also we are reducing plastic waste in school compound as well. And also my students make prototypes. There are many prototypes actually, but then I can't open my Telegram because the memory is too full. And we get our students to present in booth and to create awareness in community service. So as I always like to quote this, as Dalai Lama said, the threat of climate change is not limited by national boundaries. It affects us all. We must work to protect nature and the planet, which is our only home. And then actually we have joined this project. So I think I still have time. Dr. Anjum, please stop me if I'm over the time. I'm so sorry if I'm going over the time. I would like to play this video where it's showing our engagement.
I am Wafat Fizana, the team leader for Borneo Green Warriors. We are going to talk about Suchana for the Planet Savior project of us in Category 2, Team 1, Plastic Warrior. Our mentor is Ms. Nirmala Devi Kandasamy. Our member are Wafat Fizana, Nur Airinda Nisha, Muhammad Adam Fakri, Jaden Jordan Julian, and Nur Aliza Amira. We have been working 4 weeks in Suchana for the Planet Savior Real Action Project. The SDGs are SDG 3, Good Health and Well-being, SDG 4, Quality Education, SDG 13, Climate Action, SDG 14, Life Below Water, and SDG 17, Partnership to Achieve the Goal. We are going to present our prototype.
Okay, so if you notice that this project actually, the students...
Greetings from Malaysia. I am Wafat Fizana, the team.
Let me stop sharing first.
We
Hang
are
on.
going to talk about Suchana for the Planet Savior project of us in Category.
So in this project, actually, what I'm trying to show is that we have created the waste, but at the same time, I've shown the students that from the waste, they can create something related to innovative and creative ideas to use back in the community. So they have created the water dispenser at a small level. So we hope this idea, the innovative idea, can be used at a higher level in order to reduce the plastic waste. So this kind of steps, actually, we start small, it can grow bigger. So with that, I would like to thank IDYM Foundation and Anjum Qureshi ma'am for giving me this wonderful golden opportunity to share my baby steps in engaging, empowering my students at my own setting. Thank you, Dr. Anjum.
Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful presentation. And yes, of course, like I always tell, that you are an educator who's trying to make a difference in the world. And as it is said that when you want to change the world, we have to start from ourselves. And that's what you have been doing. Like you were telling that you avoid, along with this, even your students, you advise to do the same, like avoiding plastic straw, avoiding plastic bags. So yes, we have to start from somewhere. Might be at the moment, it would be you and few of your students, but when you are empowering the students, when the students go at home and tell that, yes, no, we don't want to use this plastic. So of course we are, in fact, you are making an impact of so many lives indirectly. So that is really a great initiative done by you. And especially like you were talking about preparing of cloth bags, how you have given them a training for converting t-shirts, used t-shirts into bags. So here we are again, recycling it. We are reusing the material. That is really good to know, and how you're working with your students. So all the best for your future endeavors, and we hope that this IDYM is the platform that comes up with so many informative sessions, but it is always incomplete without educators like you. So thank you,
so
ma'am.
much,
Thank you
ma'am.
for joining
Thank you, ma'am,
with
for
us.
the words from you.
And yes, of course, one more speaker of our today's session, Melissa, ma'am from Italy, has joined with us. And I now request Melissa, ma'am, to please take over the
Hello,
session.
I am here. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Can I share my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Please
Okay.
share this.
Okay. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very proud and very honored for you inviting me to this important session about impact of climate change in our daily life. Let's begin. Climate change affects all regions of the world. The ice caps melt and sea levels rise. In some regions, extreme weather and rainfall are becoming more prevalent, while others are affected by unprecedented droughts and heat waves. We need to act now for the climate, or this impact will only get worse. Climate change is a very serious threat, and its consequences affect many different aspects of our lives. Below is a list of the main consequences of climate change. Let's begin. First of all, natural consequences. What are the consequences of climate change on the natural world? High temperatures. The climate crisis has raised the global average temperatures and is leading to more frequent temperature extremes, such as heat waves. Higher temperatures can cause increased mortality, lower productivity, and damage to infrastructure. The most vulnerable sections of the population, such as the elderly and newborns, will suffer the most. It is also expected that higher temperatures will cause a change in the geographic distribution of climate zones. These changes are altering the distribution and abundance of many plant and animal species, which are already under pressure from habitat loss and pollution. It is also likely that the increase in temperature affects the phenology, behavior, and life cycle of animal and plant species. This could in turn lead to an increase in the number of harmful organisms and invasive species, and increased incidence of certain human diseases. Meanwhile, the yields of profitability of agriculture and livestock, or the ability of ecosystems to provide important services and goods would be reduced. Higher temperatures increase the evaporation of water, which, together with the lack of precipitation, increases the risk of several droughts. Extreme low temperatures may become less frequent in Europe. However, global warming affects the predictability of events, and therefore our ability to react effectively. And drought and forest fires. Due to climate change, many European regions are already facing more frequent, severe, and prolonged droughts. Drought is an unusual and temporary shortage of water availability caused by lack of rainfall and increased evaporation due to high temperatures. It differs from water scarcity, and which is the structural lack of fresh water throughout the year due to excessive water consumption. Droughts often have knock-on effects, for example, on transport infrastructures, agriculture, forestry, water, and biodiversity. It reduces water levels in rivers and groundwater, leads to stunted growth of trees and crops, increases pest attacks, and fuels forest fires. In Europe, for example, a large part of the almost 9 billion euros in losses caused by drugs each year damages agriculture, the energy sector, and public water supplies. Extreme droughts are becoming more frequent in Europe, and the damage caused by them is also increasing. Availability of fresh water. As the climate warms, rainfall changes, evaporation increases, glaciers melt, and sea levels rise. All these factors affect the availability of fresh water. More frequent and severe droughts and rising water temperatures are expected to cause a decline in water quality. Such conditions favor the growth of algae and toxic bacteria, which will exacerbate the water scarcity, a problem largely caused by human activity. In addition, increased rainstorms are likely to affect the quality and quantity of fresh water available, as storm water can cause wastewater to enter surface waters. Our Europa rivers, for example, generally originate in mountainous areas, and 40% of Europe's fresh water comes from the Alps, which are in Italy. However, changes in snow and glacier dynamics and precipitation patterns can cause temporary water shortages across Europe. Changes in drive flows due to drought can also affect inland navigation and hydroelectric power generation. Flooding. Climate change is expected to lead to increased rainfall in many areas. Increased rainfall over long periods will mostly lead to river flooding, while short heavy rainstorms can cause pluvial flooding, where extreme rainfall causes flooding without overflowing water bodies. Flooding from rivers is a common natural disaster in Europe, which, together with storms, has claimed the lives, affected millions of people, and caused huge economic losses over the last 30 years. Climate change is likely to increase the frequency of flooding across Europe in the coming years. Severe thunderstorms are expected to become more common and intense due to warmer temperatures, with the flash flooding expected to become more frequent across Europe. In some regions, certain risks, such as early spring flooding, could decrease in the short term with less winter snowfall, but increase the risk of flash floods in unplanned areas. Overloading the river system could offset these effects at the middle terms. And sea level rise and coastal zones. Sea level rose during the 20th century, and the trend has accelerated in recent decades. The increase is mainly due to thermal expansion of the oceans due to warming, but the melting of glaciers and the Antarctic ice cap also contributed to the phenomenon. By the end of the century, Europe is projected to experience an average sea level rise of between 60 and 80 centimeters, depending on the rate of melting of the Antarctic ice sheet. Around 1/3 of the European population lives within 15 kilometers of the coast, and these areas are generating over 30% of the Europeans' total GDP. The economic value of the activities carried out within 500 meters of European seas is between 500 and 1 billion euros. Among other effects of climate change, rising sea levels will increase the risk of flooding and erosion around coastlines, with significant consequences for people, infrastructure, businesses, and nature in these areas. In addition, rising sea levels are expected to reduce the amount of fresh water available, as seawater will seep further in the groundwater. This is also likely to lead to increased saltwater intrusion into freshwater bodies, impacting agriculture and drinking water supplies. It will also affect biodiversity in coastal habitats and the natural goods and services they provide. Many wetlands will be lost, threatening unique species of birds and plants, and eliminating the natural protection these areas offer against storms. Biodiversity. Climate change is happening as such as a fast pace that many animal and plant species are struggling to adapt. There is strong evidence that biodiversity is already responding to climate change and will continue to do so. Direct impacts include changes in phenology, species abundance and distribution, community composition, habitat structure, and ecosystem processes. Climate change is also causing indirect impacts on biodiversity throughout changes in the use of land and other resources. These can be more damaging than direct impacts due to their size, range, and speed. Indirect impacts include habitat loss and fragmentation, overexploitation, air, water, and soil pollution, and spread of invasive species. They will further reduce ecosystems' resilience to climate change and their ability to deliver essential services such as climate regulation, food, clean air and water, and flood or erosion control. Soils. Climate change can exacerbate erosion, organic matter decline, salinization, loss of soil biodiversity, landslides, desertification and flooding. Then the effect of climate change on soil carbon storage may be related to changing atmospheric CO2 concentrations, rising temperatures, and changing precipitation patterns. Extreme rainfall, rapid melting of snow or ice, high river discharges, and increased drought are all climate-related events that influence land degradation. And deforestation and other human activities, farming, skiing, also play an important role. Saline soils are expected to increase in coastal areas due to the climate change. Is expected to significantly change water availability across the world due to less predictable rainfall patterns and more intense storms. This will lead to an increase in water scarcity, particularly in southern and southeastern Europe, and increase the risk of flooding across much more of the continents. The resulting changes will affect many maritime and land regions and many different natural environments and species. Water temperature is one of the central parameters determining the overall health of aquatic ecosystems, as aquatic organisms have a specific range of temperatures they cannot tolerate. Climate change has resulted in increased water temperatures in rivers and lakes and decreases ice cap, with consequent repercussions on water quality and freshwater ecosystems. And marine environment. The impacts of climate change, such as increased sea surface temperatures, ocean acidification, and changes in currents and wind patterns will significantly change the physical and biological composition of the oceans. Variations in temperatures and ocean circulation can change the geographic distribution of fish. An increase in sea temperatures could also allow exotic species to expand into regions where they previously could not survive. Ocean acidification, for example, will impact various organisms that secrete calcium carbonate. Such changes will have an inevitable impact on coastal and marine ecosystems, with serious socioeconomic consequences for many regions. And what about social threats? What social threats do climate change pose? First of all, health. Climate change poses a significant threat not only to human health, but also to animal and plant health. While a changing climate may not create many new or unknown health threats, the effects already underway will be compounded and more pronounced than at present. Among the most important effects of future climate change on health are expected to be, first, an increase in net-related summer mortality and morbidity, and second, a decrease in cold-related winter mortality and morbidity, an increased risk of accidents and impacts on general welfare resulting from extreme weather events. Changes in the impact of diseases resulting, for example, from vector, rodent, water or foodborne diseases, variations in the seasonal distribution of some allergenic pollen species, the range of viruses, this distribution of parasites and diseases, emerging and re-emerging animal diseases, multiplying challenges for human and animal health in Europe due to zoonotic viral diseases and vector-borne diseases, emerging and re-emerging plant pests, insect pathogens, and other pests, and diseases affecting the forests and cropping system, risks associated with the changes in air quality and ozone, vulnerable populations, people living in low-income urban areas with a poor infrastructure, and, in general, population groups with the lower incomes and lesser availability of goods are more exposed to climate impacts, but even less capacity to cope with them. Women can be disproportionately affected by climate change and are disadvantaged where costly adaptation measures are needed. At the same time, women play a key role in adaptation and more generally in sustainable practices. The unemployed and socially marginalized are among the most vulnerable to climate risks. The aging of Europe's population disproportionately affected by reduced mobility on health or health-related limitations will increase to the proportion of the population vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Climate change has already started to impact displacement and migration. While climate is only one cause of displacement and migration, many partner countries on their way to sustainable development are among the hardest hit. Their populations generally depend heavily on natural habitats and have very few resources to cope with the climate change. And what about occupation? The impact of temperature increases, changes, the rainfall patterns or sea level rise will directly or indirectly affect the productivity and profitability of all economic sectors in all European member states and in all the world, with implication for the job market. Climate change may affect the availability of the workforce due to a decrease in the health conditions of the population and additional obstacles regarding occupational health. Furthermore, several economic sectors are extremely vulnerable due to their dependence on regular climatic conditions. Changes are expected at the level of productive sectors, for example, in agriculture and tourism, due to climate change. Major investments in adaptation could provide job and income opportunities in activities such as strengthening coastal defenses, construction infrastructure, water management, and the relocation of exposed settlements. However, uncertainty remains about the possible net effects of such investments in terms of job creation. To seize these opportunities, it will be necessary to improve the skills of the workforce. And what about abstraction? Reducing vulnerability and implementing the adaptation measures is not only the task and responsibility of governments. The severity of climate change requires public and private actors to work together to reduce vulnerability and adapt to impacts. However, not all stakeholders are aware and informed of their vulnerability and the steps they can take to actively adapt to climate change. Education and awareness are therefore an important component of the adaptation process to manage the impacts of climate change, improve adaptive capacity, and reduce overall vulnerability. And threat to business. How is climate change a threat to business? Infrastructure and buildings. The impacts of climate change are particularly relevant for infrastructure and buildings, such as increasing the sea surface temperatures, and given their long lifespan and high initial cost, as well as their essential role in the functioning of our societies and economies. But buildings infrastructure can be vulnerable to climate change due to their design or their location, for example, in areas prone to flooding, landslides, and in fact, they can be diminished or rendered unusable by any climate change or extreme weather event. Sea level rise, precipitation extremes, floods, extremely low or high temperatures, even snowfall, very strong winds. The consequences of climate change for building and infrastructure will vary from region to region. Power, climate threats to Europe's energy system already exist and are expected to increase. Climate change is estimated to reduce heating demand in northern and northwestern Europe and significantly increase cooling energy demand in southern Europe, which could further exacerbate peak electricity demand in summer. More intense and frequent heat waves will change energy supply and demand, often in opposite directions. Further increases in temperatures and droughts could limit the availability of cooling water for heat generation in the summer, while the demand for air conditioning will increase. Furthermore, extreme weather events of greater magnitude and frequency can pose a threat to physical energy infrastructure, overhead transmission and distribution lines, but also transformers and substations. Climate change is also leading to increased uncertainty in water patterns across the world. This has a direct long-term negative impact on renewable energy production. Some immediate examples are the reduction of solar radiation or wind in areas where there is usually more or heat and drought affecting crops used for production of biomass energy. And what about agriculture and forestry? Climate change and climate variability are expected to have a substantial effect on agricultural production, both in terms of crop yields and in terms of water and where different crops can be grown. The cropping time has increased and is expected to do so further due to an early start of growth in spring and a longer growing season in autumn. These would allow worstings of crops to be expanded north into areas that were previously unsuitable. Due to a combination of heat and drought, substantial losses in agricultural production are expected for most parts of the world during the 21st century, which will not be compensated by gains in other parts of the world. While an effective adaptation option for agriculture, irrigation will increasingly be limited by water availability. The southern regions will be hit the hardest, with an overall negative impact on agriculture. High temperatures, water shortages, and extreme weather events can lead to lower yields, greater yield variability, and in the long term, a reduction of suitable areas for cultivation. The effects will depend on the trend of rainfall and the crops considered. For example, northern regions of Europe could expect some positive effects on agriculture throughout the introduction of new crop varieties, higher yields, and the expansion of areas suitable for cultivation. This is due to the lengthening of agricultural campaigns, the increase in frost-free periods, and the reduction of cold waves. However, negative impacts are also expected, mainly due to the increase of pests and disasters, and leaching of nutrients, and the reduction of organic matter in the soil. Effect on forestry from climate change include increased risk of drought, storms and fires, and pests and diseases, all of which cause a disruption of forest health. The impact of the fires is particularly strong on already degraded ecosystems in southern Europe, and is expected to worsen in the future with the longer and more severe fire seasons in this area. Forest growth is expected to decrease in southern Europe and increase in the northern Europe. However, forest biodiversity is expected to change across Europe as tree species evolve and trees to specialized plant communities increase. Limited tree species diversity in boreal forests is expected to increase the risk of significant pest and disease impacts. And at the end, we can speak about tourism. The economic consequences of climate change for regions where tourism is important can be considerable. Southern Europe's suitability for tourism is expected to decrease significantly in the main summer months, but improve in other seasons. Central Europe is expected to increase its tourist attractiveness throughout the year. Projected reduction in snow cover will negatively impact the winter sport industry in many regions. And with this, my speech is ended. I thank you all for listening to me with attention, and Heidi for inviting me to this important session. It is very important for me to share with you my ideas and my knowledge. Thank you again.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much, ma'am. It was really a very great session as you talked about how climate change is being caused, and you also talked how it is affecting our health, it is affecting our occupation, and how it is affecting our daily life. That was really a very great session. And of course, today we had 4 speakers today. We had Nirmala Devi ma'am from Malaysia, we had you from Italy, Melissa ma'am, and then Elizabeth ma'am from Mexico, and Rania Lembo ma'am from Greece, and all the 4 speakers. They were really very brilliant. It was all the knowledgeable sessions. So thank you to all the speakers for sharing your knowledge with us, and please be with us, because yes, IDYM is again a platform that has a motto to spread awareness. And yes, we have been working a lot on climate change. We had the World Earth Day, we had the Global Environment Summit, and then the celebration of World Environment Day. So everywhere we are trying to create a difference, because we know that for the development or for the change that we want to bring, awareness is always the first step. And yes, IDYM has been doing a great work regarding this. Thank you one and all, and for joining with us, all the speakers especially. And of course, thank you to Ravi Shankar sir, who comes with unique ideas every day for every sessions, and we always have unique programs on IDYM. So thank you one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.